What's cracking, guys? Omar Isaf here, back with another video here in beautiful San Diego, filming some content, training with my boy Brett Contreras. A lot of content on the way. I decided to make this video after talking to Dr. Mike Israetel. This is something I have suspected for a while, anecdotally, talking to a lot of bodybuilding coaches, but this is something kind of cool and different, and ultimately the take-home point for everyone watching this video: you don't know what your potential is, so you might as well train to your full potential. You might as well train as hard as possible, as long as possible, and really see where you can go from there. The first thing I want to say before I kind of talk about the difference between your response to steroids and what your innate natural muscular potential is, I also just want to talk about your starting base. And I think this is an incorrect assumption a lot of bros make, and that is based upon how you look before you start lifting will help determine what your training response essentially will be to lifting. So if you look bad before you start lifting, you probably don't have good genetics when it comes to training. You probably won't build a lot of muscle. Also, the reverse, that if you look really good before you start lifting, let's say you're lean and you have maybe some abs naturally, that you probably have some good muscle building potential, you'll respond well to training. And they found, I'm going to link it in the description, my boy Greg Knuckles, this isn't necessarily the case. You can be skinny fat before you ever touch some weights because there are so many lifestyle factors, and then you start training and you have a really good response to that training. So actually, just because you look bad before you start lifting doesn't mean that you'll have a poor training response. And so that's the first big incorrect assumption, and that's what my big advice always to beginners will be: you just don't know. So why not train super hard? Why not, take this very seriously and then see how your body responds? So that's the first incorrect assumption. The second big one, and I'm kind of not swooping in to defend anyone, you just don't know how your body will respond, A, to training, but then B, if you decide to be enhanced, to that enhancement. Just because you have good natural muscle building potential doesn't mean you'll respond well to doses of testosterone, to super physiological doses of hormones. They are actually not quite correlated. Androgen receptor sensitivity is different than that innate muscle building potential for a natural individual. Okay, what does this mean? Well, we'll see comments all the time by bros. Oh, if I took what that guy took, I'd look exactly like him or better. That's not necessarily the case. There's actually 4 potential possible scenarios. Again, because the individual genes that determine how well you respond, because keep in mind, we're talking super physiological doses. So you're taking way more testosterone than your body could ever produce. Those genes that determine that androgen receptor sensitivity, that determine how you respond to those drugs, those are different than your natural muscle building genes. So there's 4 possible scenarios. The first one would be someone that has trained for a while, so they have put in a lot of time training, and their body doesn't quite respond well to training. They have a low response. Okay. And then they use doses of testosterone, so they use steroids, and then what ends up happening also, they have a poor response to steroids. So they have a poor response to training, poor response to steroids. The second possible option, however, that a lot of people don't talk about, you might have a natural poor response to training. So you train really hard and just things aren't working out. You don't look great after 5 years, but then you do use those super physiological doses. You do decide to become enhanced and your body actually responds exceptionally well. And again, it's kind of like a bell curve where you just don't know. Just because you got good innate muscle building potential or poor doesn't mean you'll have good potential for steroids. So that person that had poor natural genetics takes steroids and they end up developing a great physique. This is also where it gets interesting. Let's talk about those that have a natural, good, positive muscle building potential. The first scenario, someone has, a good physique. They've been training for 5 years, so they have a good response to training naturally. Then they decide to use high doses of whatever, testosterone. They decide to become enhanced. And then they once again get a great response. That's what most people assume will happen. But there is that 4th scenario. The 4th scenario being someone that has really good natural genetics. So they train and they just blow up. And then they decide to take steroids. So they take some testosterone, some other things, and then what ends up happening, because that androgen receptor sensitivity, it might not be great, they don't get a lot out of it. So they're naturally quite good, and then when they become enhanced, they become a little bit better. And I think when people talk about either steroids, they have a lot of misconceptions. Again, people will say, well, if I did that, I'll look as huge as that guy. Not necessarily the case. Also, some people, might try and throw people under the bus by saying, it's not steroids. You still got to do the work. Well, we know the research for some people. Once again, they did that study where they found that some people that just did absolutely nothing, didn't train at all, but took steroids, got better results than those that were natural and trained really hard. So what does that tell you? The individual response to everything is the largest determining factor. So when it comes to your potential, you're a beginner, you don't know what you got, you haven't been training for 10 years, you don't know what that muscle building potential is, you might as well train as hard as possible. And that should be the take-home point of this video. The last thing I will say, I think it's cool when it comes to research, when it comes to just what lies in the future. I think they will be able to correctly identify these genes that determine your response to steroids, and also overall probably your training response, so you can know right out of the gate, is it worth it for me? Even when it comes to things like TRT, let's be honest, a lot of people use TRT or higher doses of TRT in the hopes that they'll build more muscle. Well then, let's say 10 years down the line, you'll probably be able to figure out whether or not that's worth it for you in the first place. Anyways, train as hard as possible, train smart, don't hate on anyone else, and do your own damn thing. That's all I really gotta say. If you liked the video, if you thought to yourself, while watching the video, like the damn video. And final thing I will say, if you're looking to get a good training program, if you're looking for something that's affordable, Kaizen Training. Myself, Silent Mike, and Park Kwan, we started Kaizen Training to offer everyone affordable, effective programs. 50% off right now. Sale ends in a few days. Get it. Black Friday discount code. So just put Black Friday 17 at checkout for 50% off, half off all programs. Go to kaizentraining.com. I'll see all you guys, my rascals, in that next video. Peace.